So this is the 16:15 hours GMT edition. And I hope it's marked part A of the Baby Angel Geronimo editions of the KHOODEELAAR television channel, created, researched and edited by me, Muhammad Haque. And this is Tuesday, the 13th of December 2022. Now, I'm still going through the Sunday Times piece, and I'm on page 17. This one, I'm starting with the entry on Ram Foam Limited. PPE contracts £149 million. Government estimate of unused PPE £108 million. Last week, the Sunday Times revealed that Ram Foam, a West Midlands firm that previously specialized in foam inserts and products, had made 70 million pounds in profits on a deal for mostly unused PPE. PPE is personal protection equipment. Its chief executive, Philip Johnson, has paid himself a 13 million pounds dividend, applied to build a pool and sauna in the countryside home where he lives with his wife Linda, and has celebrated 2 of his last 3 birthdays by tucking into a briefcase of cake aboard a private yacht. He did not respond to requests for comment, but in response to the scrutiny, his daughter, an employee, Anya, published a picture on Instagram depicting her father boarding a private jet in Dubai. Living up to what the paper said today, she joked, adding a chuckles emoji. Chuckles is like giggling, but it's obviously giggling with contempt, not towards her father, but to the scrutineers, who are few and far between. The Sunday Times piece is completely rare. It's unmasked. This is unmasked, and unmasked is actually being. Let's try and put this up. Yes, unmasked. Will it come? Will it come? Will it come? It's not coming on the camera. But this camera is not catching the unmasked, but that is the main title of the story, which is being run by the Sunday Times last Sunday as an investigation. And this is the one about Sarah, a woman called Sarah Stout, left, and husband Richard. It's £2 billion PPE contracts. This is all COVID robbery. And the investigation piece is byline to Gabrielle Pogrand, whatever the pronunciation is. You can check and update later with a note. Not in this edition, maybe another edition. And Jack Clover, Clover. Clover, as I pronounce it, could be Clover, but Clover is a suitable surname, incidentally. In the panic during the first COVID wave, hundreds of firms were swiftly given contracts to supply medical protective gear. They were paid £7.4 billion worth, but much of the equipment ended up unused. These British-based firms got the biggest deals. This is the PPE reach list now. I have to say that Keir Starmer, the political murderer of the Labour Party, or the political murderer of the purpose for which the Labour Party had been founded more than 100 years ago, should be prosecuted and banned from public life forever. This criminal, Keir Starmer, has not made anything, absolutely nothing, about this de facto PPE reach list that has existed for years. So the criminal is making completely intentionally stupid promise that he would abolish the House of Peers. As a conservative with a small c but with a substantial conservative orientation in everything he does and everything he represents, everything he stands for, this criminal, Keir Starmer, will fizzle out. I cannot give a date, but Starmer is not going to last very long. Whether he disappears after the next election or even before that. Okay, so Keir Starmer has not made any point of any issue about this robbery, and nor has he made anything about Jeremy the Hunt, the so-called chancellor, the finance minister, who is even now deregulating the already deregulated finance market, making it easier for the robbers to do more robberies than the list of the PP rich list actually contains the numbers. This is absolutely essential reading. We're going to read the whole thing in another edition because of time factors and schedules involved in our campaigning activities. This edition will be much shorter than it could be because I have got appointments and commitments to keep. It's absolutely amazing. I just read the beginning, first paragraph. They are the three letters that the Tories cannot seem to shake. PPE. Last week, the Conservative peer, Baroness Mone, announced that she was taking a leave of absence from the House of Peers. Now, I'm not reading the word Lords, I'm calling it House of Peers. Because Lords, there is no human being that can be a Lord. Only God is the Lord. I mean, that is not a fanatical expression, it's a universal expression. No human being can be a Lord. So, no Lord in any linguistic expressions, landlord, this Lord, that Lord, or House of Lords. So, peers, House of Peers. Now, Baroness Moore announced that she was taking a leave of absence from the House of Peers amid scrutiny over deals awarded to PPE MedPro. MedPro is medical pro, not mad as a sick, insane. She denies wrongdoing. Of course she does. Now, the Sunday Times can reveal the scale of the unused PPEs supplied by the 20 privately owned British based companies that received the biggest deals in the pandemic and how much they made. Our PPE reach list shows these businesses, including PPE MedPro, received a total of 7.4 billion in contracts, but also produced more than 1 billion in PPE placed in the do not supply lane as of June 2021, meaning the masks, gowns, and gloves in question had not been sent to NHS doctors or patients for frontline use. In total, more than 680 farms, that is, companies, businesses, including listed farms and those run by overseas businesses, received contracts to supply PPE to the UK government. Now, remember what the sleazeball, the complete cunt, David Cameron, who deposited Michelle Mone in the House of Peers, said about her. He said she was a leading kind of exemplar and a model, an entrepreneur, business entrepreneur. He could not be more appropriate, not correctly, not morally, not ethically, but in fact, because she is the robber. Now, what is the Mad Pro description here? In the reach list, PPE MedPro Limited, PPE contracts 203 million, government estimate of unused PPE 125 million pounds. MedPro is probably the highest profile firm that received PPE contracts because of allegations of its ties to Baroness Mone. The self-made multimillionaire grew up in Glasgow's East End, set up her own business after becoming redundant aged 23. Notice the speed, and made her money selling weight loss pills, fake tan products, and lingerie. David Cameron alighted on her as a symbol of the entrepreneurial spirit. That is the exact words or phrase that they are using. Okay, so David Cameron alighted on her as a symbol of the entrepreneurial spirit his government was seeking to foster. Indeed, he was, and made her a conservative peer in 2015. As COVID 19 cases rose, it is said that Mone, now aged 51, began lobbying ministers, including Michael Gove and Lord Agnew. Now, Lord, I am using within quotation marks, Agnew of Oulton, on behalf of PPE MedPro, a newly formed firm that was duly sent down the BIP procurement lane. MedPro won a 200 million contract for PPE, including gowns that, it transpired, were not then used by the NHS. Mone has consistently denied having anything to do with the company and any wrongdoing. The National Crime Agency raided her home last year as part of a fraud investigation into its activities. The Guardian, that is the newspaper, last month reported that Mone and her children received 29 million pounds originating from PPE MedPro's profits. Rishi Sunak said he was shocked by the allegations. Now, as I said, because of time factor, I'm not reading anymore and I'm not going through any of the other items that I would have done had there been different commitments and schedules of activities that I have to address today. I'm the organizer of several campaigns and I'm the chief trustee of a non-profit UK registered charity. We don't raise funds. We never have raised funds, not since I became the chief organizer and trustee 7-8 years ago. But I have been involved with this organization for 40 plus years. It has had various names and various kind of individuals involved in it, and they have been funded by the public. I have not received any funding, public funding, and I have not sought any public funding or any private funding. Everything that I do in my capacity as the chief executive and main campaigner and the chief constitutional law advocate, is the costs covered by my own resources, whatever resources I have available at the given time. And this is the only organization that exists in the UK that is of that description. And I'm, of course, profiled in The Guardian in March to the 1992. Anyone who wants to know. The heading to the profile given by The Guardian in a stupid way is The Angry Messiah of E1, that is London E1. It started as an angry messiah, but ended as a degenerate racist attack on me, or attempt racist attack on me. But they couldn't attack me because of any impropriety whatsoever. They tried their worst, but they could not find any trace of impropriety or unethical behavior in my role that they tried to condemn through the likes of Ken Lying Still Livingstone and others. Lying Still Livingstone factually was absolutely accurate to say that I had tried to disrupt many of his meetings, which I did. I disrupted more meetings organized by the then leader of the Greater London Council, GLC, which I called the Greater Lying Still Conurbation. I think I disrupted, halted about 250 to 300 events at the County Hall in London as E1 that Ken Lying Still Livingstone had organized to promote himself as the leading left-wing socialist in the whole of the United Kingdom, which he wasn't. He never could be. He's a crook and a liar and a very feeble kind of pretender to intellectual kind of substance. So Ken Lying Still Livingstone had a factual reason to say to The Guardian in March 1992 that I had disrupted his meetings, which I did, and I would do the same thing if he wasn't protected by all kinds of anonymous things now, because he's not in office, and I'm not therefore kind of following him as acutely as I did when he was in office as the leader of the GLC. Now, Peter Newsom is a racist liar who was the education officer at the Inner London Education Authority, where I was the most vocal and most active member of the biggest committee of the Inner London Education Authority, which is the schools subcommittee. It's called subcommittee, but it was the most powerful education committee in all of Europe at the time, because it had the largest number of schools in the control of the Inner London Education Authority. The school subcommittee was the one that decided, or at least went over the policies that Frantic Morel, I call her, Frantic Morel wanted to promote. I was the only scrutineer, as even the racist evilness called Anne Sofa admitted. She said that the people in the community that had elected me, that had happened in October 1982, I think, yes, could not have chosen a more perfect and efficient advocate for themselves, which is absolutely more than correct. Now, I was also on other committees like Development Committee, I think that had various issues to do with the development planning, etc., in the Inner London Education Authority area. But the school subcommittee had the largest number of appointments, I think. And I went to attend the appointments panel in the clear knowledge that I would be in the minority in terms of voting, because most of the candidates that got selected for appointment with the majority of the panelists were totally unfit and I opposed them. But I had to be on the record. That is what matters. Not winning, but be on the record as telling the truth. And I diagnosed them as best as I could do within the constraints of the servile chairs that chaired each of the session. Now, Peter Newsom, I would never have appointed him because an arse-licking criminal, and he was completely, absolutely racist stereotype, the liar. Because when he was in the Inner Learner Education Authority, I wasn't a member of the schools committee or of the ILE or the other committees. But if I had been involved in the appointment process where he would have been given the go ahead for appointment, I would not have appointed him for this reason. Because when he was in the Inner Learner Education Authority, Peter Newsom made a point of visiting, very strange, visiting an outfit called the Eastern Community School that was operated by Mr. Muhammad Nurul Haq. The spelling is different, Huque. Nurul Haq was his pet. And Nurul Haq, as a complete mental slave, would parade himself walking with Peter Newsom, who was much shorter than him. But Nurul Haq kind of relied on the reflected glory that Peter Newsom, being in the walkabouts with him, represented. And Nurul Haq thought that this was him, Nurul Haq, that is, being the Mir Zafar, because he was with the Clive, Lord Clive. Now, Nurul Haq would, of course, disagree with me very strongly that he is like a Mir Zafar or he behaved like a Mir Zafar. But he did. Now, Nurul Haq boasted in 2012 at a discussion, well, at a meeting held in the Greater Exstreet. There was the cafe that I and K. Jordan had used until December 2010, when K stopped visiting the East End of London for reasons that I will not be discussing here, but I will be discussing in later editions before the end of December. Nurul Haq boasted that he had paid one of his relations. He didn't go into details, but it was probably a nephew of his, £1,000 or equivalent, to enjoy himself or do something that he could do with that kind of money. Now, Nurul Haq made that boastful statement at the very sitting there in the cafe, where he knew the Tower Hamlets Council. Remember, that was in 2012. Tower Hamlets Council, fronted at that time, that year, 2012, by the corrupt Mayor Luthuraman and the corrupt outfit called this SSBA, which K. Jordan had founded and established. Again, I'll update on the SSBA and its criminality since K. Jordan stopped being the chief executive. And others had mounted a severe, planned, poisonous criminal attack on the libraries, the foundations, the archives, and so on, that were kept in various premises in Brick Lane and in the nearby streets. And I was the one who had organized those, collected those over decades. And that the £1,000 that Nurul Haq had boasted of giving to one of his relations would have helped, at least would have helped pay for the transport over a shorter period, but it would have actually delayed the destruction that the criminals were carrying out of the libraries and archives and things. That is the kind of cruel, depraved mentality This man who also styles himself as Professor Nurul Haq. Now, he is not a professor. He never was a professor in this country. He invented that title after he settled in the United Kingdom. And he claimed that he was a professor in then East Pakistan. He might have been a professor in East Pakistan, but having observed, empirically observed and done field work right across the East Pakistan universities and academic areas, I can say 50 years later or 51 years later that most of the professors would not be able to spell one paragraph of a professorial doctrine or dissertation if they were challenged. I've seen some of the professors, and the highest ranking ones too failed because all of them were mental slaves, not a single exception. I couldn't find a single exception. So much so that when I addressed the national, that was the East Pakistan wide gathering of university vice chancellors and principals and so on at the Institute of Education in the University of Dhaka. I went in there uninvited and without asking for their permission, the chair's permission. I condemned the whole gathering and I said it's a completely time wasting gathering. So instead of challenging me, instead of countering me, those morons, they invited me to address them, which I did. Guess what? That was in January 1970, and my speech wasn't played, but I was shown as the leading item in the news in the Pakistan wide national television news channel on that particular day in January 1970. So Nurul Haq would not be a professor. I would never rate him as a even a lecturer. Ethics, morality, integrity, and real true knowledge are the ones that are the criteria. Now, when Peter Newsom came to the Eastern Community School and Nurul Haq paraded himself walking some of these streets around Brick Lane alongside Peter Newsom, what did Nurul Haq think he was doing? He must have thought he was walking Robert Clive, along Robert Clive of the 1757, June 57 battle in the near Calcutta, in the Palashi. The English word is Plassey. The criminals cannot even get the original spelling right. Palashi. That's where the treachery took place. And Mir Zafar betrayed Nawab Sirajuddaulah. And the process of creating the empire across the subcontinent began. So Nurul Haq, despite the fact that he makes or he has made in his career a number of so-called socialist and revolutionary kind of references, he is a mental slave through and through. I mean, he did the parade with Newsom and also wrote press releases, so-called in the Bengali language, to the ethnicity-linked servile outlets that were operated from London in the name of the Bangladeshi community. Now, that time, it wasn't more than one title. I think it's the Janamat, which was actually based somewhere in Wandsworth, I think. Either in Wandsworth or in SW1 or SW17. I will check that and update that fact because I haven't looked at the address for a very long time. So Nurul Haq publicized himself being visited by his master, Peter Newsom. Now, imagine when the Guardian, Sarah Bosley, who is now the health editor, this racist idiot, I mean, she completely fucked up the whole piece. Any reading of the piece, the angry messiah of E1 would show me really angrier and being justified at being more angry than I would have been had she not fucked up the whole piece. First of all, she compared me with a hero of the Indian novelist, like a hero in one of the books of the Indian novelists. And then she collected not one single Indian, not one single Bangladeshi, not one single Asian or Pakistani, whatever. She collected Ken Livingston Livingstone, Peter Newsom, and assorted other poison constipations, if you like. I mean, look at Keir Starmer's picture. He looks like a living constipation, doesn't he? And he's probably showing signs of his kind of political demise. That is why he looks constipated, Peter Newsom, who is the political murderer of the Labour Party and everything the Labour Party was established to achieve. Now, Peter Newsom, Ken Livingston Livingstone, and a few other races were collected. I mean, I would check and I'll update on Daphne Gould. Daphne Gould is passed away now, but she was the head teacher of the Mulberry School in Tower Hamlets off the Commercial Road in Richard Street, London E1. Now look at the idiots. I mean, she should have been grateful for her the rest of her life for the work that I did. What did I do? I prevented the ending of the Mulberry School as a all girls school. I stopped it. I stopped the Inner London Education Authority from doing that. I did that. No amount of money could do that. And Daphne Gould was in tears out of frustration that her school was going to be converted into a mixed sex school, effectively. And no one was there to help her. She was in tears. She was not in tears begging for my help, because as she was weeping and crying, she had no idea who I was. Well, she had an idea as to who I was in terms of the location, because my home in New Road is only about 200 yards or 300 yards from the front gate of the Richard Street based school. But she had no idea what I was going to do. So I undertook, as I have done and I do, the only thing that I always know and I succeed in doing. I started a campaign and I collected about 32 or whatever 100 signatures over a period of few months from various people opposing. Well, we collected the signatures to the petition addressing the then Secretary of State, who was named Kenneth Baker, opposing the Inner London Education Authority's proposal to mix the school, make the school, Mulberry School, as a mixed sex school. And Kenneth Baker saw the strength of the evidence and he rejected the ILA's plan. Fuck the ILA, fuck the Labour Party distorters and fuckers. As a result of the Inner London Education Authority's bid to destroy the single-sex nature of the school, compared to the other schools in Tower Hamlets and in the rest of London, compared to most of those schools, that school prospered in terms of formal academic records. So much so that it stays at the top of the number of schools doing well. So much so that Michelle Obama noticed the existence of that school. And guess what? She came to Tower Hamlets and praised the school and praised the girls. I did that. I wasn't there. I didn't have to be there. I never needed to be there. But I knew that I had made Michelle Obama, the wife of the president of the time of the United States, come to Tower Hamlets and praise the school and praise the girls. Now, of course, this happened long after Daphne Gould disappeared, retired. But that racist cunt shouldn't have said a single word in criticism of me because I saved the school from being destroyed by the Inner London Education Authority. I did that. No parent went with me except one, but he was a constipation himself. He went there uncertain about what would happen as a result. And I wasn't going to take any chances. I needed those signatures. And people who I approached knocked on the doors, many of them thought that I was there to collect money because they said you are going to get money from these. I have never collected money from any of the campaigns I have ever done, and I've been a campaigner for decades. I don't do that. I mean, how would I do a campaign and collect money? Campaign and money do not mix. No money linked campaign can succeed, not ethically, not morally. So, this is the program that we shall be bringing to an end after 36 minutes, I think, on Tuesday, the 13th of December 2022. And we shall be continuing on all those themes, update on Shamima Begum's progress, update on the disintegration of Lutfur Rahman in a different way in Tower Hamlets in the corrupt regime that he is fronting, and update on the situation, a bit of an embarrassment for Imran Khan because in Pakistan, when he started about few months before he was ousted by the crooks in the judiciary, Imran Khan had begun the Hakiki Azadi movement in Pakistan. That goes back to Robert Clive, 1757, and the ending of 190 years of the kind of occupation of the subcontinent ended in August 1947. And Imran Khan is counting back to August 1947. And Pakistan was created on the 14th of August, and India was created a republic 15th of August 1947. 1 day's difference. But Imran Khan did that years after I started the contextual evaluation of the 75 years. So I was quite impressed by the discovery in the news which I noticed after Imran Khan was ousted, that he was talking about Hakiki Azadi, the actual true independence, the meaning of true independence from the colonialist British imperialists. But now, in the last 7 days, the news in Pakistan has been, mixed to say the least kindly. Because previous to last week's revelations, Imran Khan's current wife was unmentioned, and that's how she should have remained. But she became mentioned because apparently audio tape surfaced suggesting that she was putting some watches for sale or something, which is absolutely trivial and stupid. Whoever released that was stupid because Bushra Bibi wasn't doing a crime, whatever it is that she was putting on. And then Imran Khan also is being kind of reminded of the other thing that he put on sale, the gifts that he received at the time that he was in office as prime minister. So this is something that is inconsistent. I won't say it would discredit Imran Khan's main movement, but it is inconsistent. And Imran Khan, who has spoken the most about rule of law, due process, shouldn't have been embarrassed by the Muslim League Nawaz Sharif lot. Because 4 years ago, there was a defamation suit against him. And it took 4 years to reply. How the fuck did he get into that stupid delay, the lazy bastard? I have been encouraging him, but he should not have been so lazy. So he should be very careful in the next round of things. I wish him luck. I think he is better than the rest in Pakistan, but he should be very careful and consistent. He should not be taking anything for granted. So we'll end this particular program edition at 39 minutes, well, 40 minutes, let's say. And we shall be continuing the next edition whenever other campaigning schedules and activities permit me.